Well, I have never seen that happen before. Truly, that was a surprise. You know, in the past, I've been spread so thin at the World Cups that I never truly engaged with the racing as a fan, as there was just so much to do I didn't have the time. Also, being on the hill while filming and trying to watch the live feed on my phone with patchy 4G means you tend to miss a lot of stuff. Working from home, I've been able to follow everything properly and really get invested in the racing, and it has been glorious. Mont Sainte Anne is an epic venue for the final round, and surprisingly, the weather has been not terrible, considering the time of year. It's been cold, but dry at least. The track is also an all-out assault on the senses that puts up a formidable challenge for riders and equipment. It always provides exciting racing, and boy did we get that today. Rosa Zierl came in with a good lead in the junior girls and only really needed to have a safe run to win the series title. But she did not go safe. She rode creative lines, cutting to the insides of some turns on the dry course, and through the rocks down the bottom, she looked the most composed and smooth out of all the junior girls, which just shows her fitness and skill. Straight into the hot seat, and with that she wrapped up the overall with only 3 riders left to go. Eliana Hulsbach had the speed to win this race. Her split times up top were consistently the fastest out of all the women, and she looked like she was going to settle for nothing less than the win. She looked so strong on track and really muscled that bike through the gnarliest sections with great control. A lot of riders got pushed around in the rock garden, but she held a direct line, no fear. Then sprinting to the finish, it looked like she was just wheel spinning the whole way up to the line to go into the lead. Aletha Osgaard qualified fastest with a time that would have seen her finish in second in the elites. She was right on pace with Eliana and looked very smooth in comparison. She mentioned at the finish she was trying to hold back up top to keep energy for the bottom, and it was definitely the right call, as she looked tired through the bottom 2 sectors despite going through them at warp speed. The front end was dancing from side to side, which had the crowd gasping, but she kept it upright and moving toward the finish at high speed. She crossed the line to take another win and knock Eliana Hulsbach down into second, with Rosa Zierl in third. So Rosa took the overall, Aletha claimed second, and Eliana just clawed herself into third. The wild thing is that Rosa and Aletha will be staying in junior next year, so it'll be another year before we see them taking on the elites. Whoa, that junior men race was an exciting one, with the most impressive run we've seen this year. And that's saying something considering the year we've had. There was drama in the morning before the race though, with series leader Max Alran having an awkward crash in the gnarly rock garden and dislocating his finger. And I'm talking like full on right angled to the side job. He yanked it back in, headed to the pits, stuck a wrist brace on as he also injured that, then went up for his race. And despite a decent lead in the series, he still had to finish 7th or higher to win. Before he got to test his body out and see if everything still worked, the rest of the juniors took to the hill, and the Yeti duo of Jonty Williamson and Tyler Waite delighted the crowd with some sensational riding. Jonty was on point up top, and then he gapped into the tricky left in the woods, and the bike stepped out, and he hung a leg and somehow saved it without losing momentum. He was one of the few juniors with the skill, strength and bravery to triple out of the rock garden, which gave him insane exit speed into the lower slopes. He kept it smooth and took the speed all the way to the finish and into the hot seat. He wasn't able to chill for long though, as his teammate was on track right after him. Tyler used his size to his advantage and crushed the top section with powerful flow. He pulled gap after gap after gap on his run, pulled from the top of the Stevie Smith cliff, doubled the crest after, sent it deep off the scrub drop, and pre-jumped the crest beautifully even if he needed a set of binoculars to see it from the sky cam. He was one of the few racers to take the wide line in the rock garden, but did he do the rock triple? Yes sir, clean as. Last Woods weren't as clean though. He cased the triple in, smashed a rock, and barely slowed down. At the finish, he took a hefty 3.5 seconds out of his teammate and took his place on the hot seat. Now we got to see if Max's injured wrist and finger would be up to the task. Up top, it looked chill. Now Max always looks chill, but this was different. This was damage limitation. This was a championship ride to try and get a top 7 to win the series, but he was nowhere near. 16th place at the second split. Max was going to have to do something and do it quick. He started to wind things on towards the end of the run, maybe sensing that the hand and wrist were doing better than expected. He kept it flowing, kept it clean, didn't take the most committing gaps, but he was looking smooth. He got the injured body to the last features, pulled the sickest scrub of the event off that bottom drop, and crossed the line in third to secure the overall. But then we were in for a treat. It feels like we haven't seen Asa Vermette's full potential all year. Turns out he was saving it for the final round. He started strong with the fastest top splits, and he was charging into the woods, hitting those turns and compressions with ferocity yet composure. His corner speed was breathtaking, but then he played the ace up his sleeve. He set up wide in the rock garden, carried the speed round, and then unleashed a charge of momentum through sector 4 that was breathtaking. It was the triple, then the power he put down that made the difference. You could tell because he didn't even have to pull up to clear the drop on the way out. He did it with pure momentum. It was breathtaking. He then ran that Frameworks bike through full travel several times through the last woods and barely flinched. At the finish line, he was almost 5 seconds faster than anyone else and also faster than all the elites. Mostly.
Really low. Did his hand just come off the bar?
So Max takes the overall, his second in a row, along with the World Champs title. Asa finished the series in second and Tyler finished in third. All three of them will be moving up to elites next year, which will be very exciting to see. The elite women had a slightly less exciting series battle as Valley Hall had already wrapped it up at the last round. There was a battle between Gracie Hemstreet in second and Tanny Seagrave in third, which had an anticlimactic start and an incredibly climactic finish. Tanny didn't even start the race. A combo of illness, fatigue and psychological burnout led to her pulling out of the race. A savvy decision considering her third place in the overall was guaranteed. Gracie still wanted to put on a show for the Canadian fans and go for a race win. Unfortunately, after Tanny's DNS, we also got to witness a spectacular DNF. Gracie had a colossal crash off the final drop, which is surprising considering how good she is at this kind of feature. We have a clip of her in the morning scrubbing off it, showing how good she is at this kind of drop. In her race, it looks like her only mistake was carving a slightly tighter line than normal, trying to squeeze out every millisecond from the feature. The ground there is looser, and as she approaches the lip, the back end breaks traction, then grips right on the lip, which kicks her back end up and out to the right, putting her into an off-balance nosedive. She manages to steer into it and save the landing, but now she is heading off the track at high speed. She jumps off the side of the final double, cases the crest of the B line, and gets ejected off the bike into a horrifying high-speed dismount, heading straight for the crowd. She hits the ground out of sight, and it's a long time before we hear about her condition. It was an incident reminiscent of Reece Wilson's dismount in Leger, where he flew into the ground and the crowd after getting spat off his bike. I reacted in the same way in both situations, with my hands over my mouth in shock. Luckily, Gracie was up and about after the crash, and it seemed she was just battered and bruised. Unfortunately, someone in the crowd wasn't so lucky, and sounds like they might have broken a leg. Freak accident, but I'm sure organisers will figure out how to make things safer for the crowd without sanitising the experience too much, and we hope the unfortunate individual heals up well and does not have any long-term issues. Moving back to the racing, series winner Valley Hall had a rough one the day before with a huge crash just before qualifying. Because of that, she qualified slower than her speed would suggest and took to the slopes early on in the race day. She looked to have recovered though and was charging down that mountain, going for the win to finish on a high despite her not needing to. She was setting sector times way faster than the other women and it was looking great, but as she entered the rock garden, she slowed up, came to a stop, looked down at her flat front tire, race over. And my fantasy team was much sad. Very lucky she did win the series at the last round, as we got to see her shrug off the incident and hype up the crowd before the next riders. Marine Cabreau had been riding strong all week and the powerful French woman looked to be back to her best. She goes well in Mont Sainte Anne, winning here before, and you could see why with her confident aggression on track. One of the few racers to get cleanly onto the inside after the Stevie Smith drop, and then she was super clean and composed through all the tricky rocks. Hard on the pedals where it counts, and she pulled the key gap for the women. The step down across the massive compression in the final woods. That's just so hard to do in a full run. The speed she carried out of the woods was visibly so much higher than the others, and she carried it all the way to the finish to go into the hot seat with a time 10 seconds faster than qualifying the day before. Nina Hoffmann is another rider with the power to make miracles happen on the demanding Mont Sainte Anne course, and I felt she had the win in her today. I had her on my fantasy team. She went hard up top, overcooking a critical right-hander, but she had the power to get back up to speed and the fitness to not give up too much energy. She was so aggressive in the upper woods with insane speed through the rock drop and through the following compressions, going blow to blow with marine splits. It was looking very close. Very composed in the woods, she got to the critical gap and chose to keep it smooth, giving up a little time to Marine. Half a second loss, she worked hard to the finish to make it up, but it wasn't going to be, with her finishing just behind Marine. Then it was fastest qualifier, Miriam Nicole, the rider who's missed most of the races due to injury and concussion, the rider who's been struggling with mindset and confidence on the back of those injuries, the rider who somehow manages to overcome those struggles and throw her all into her race runs. Miriam went for the win in Mont Sainte Anne. She was riding so good up top, great splits and commitment into the most daunting features. Her speed off the Stevie Smith cliff was unreal as she barely touched it while she flew off the top. Coming into the lower slopes, she hit a consequential sharp rock in the exit of the rock garden, but luckily didn't puncture. Then in the critical woods, she backed off from the gap the Marine hit, deleting some momentum. Miriam lunged through the line to finish the race in third place. Impressive, but not what she wanted. So Valley takes the impressive series win despite all the setbacks this year. Gracie manages to climb up onto the second place step with some help from Tani, and Tani finishes in third, despite not competing at the last round. Oh, and quick mention for Camille Balanche, this was her final World Cup race of her career. She looked to be on a good one till a horror crash. She nosedived off a drop, hit a hole, collapsed into the bike, and flipped into a tree. Luckily, she was all good, and a lot of people were saying what a shame it was to finish on a low like that, but I think it's the opposite. If you finish on a high, it can be hard to let go of something. But if you finish on a low, it makes it so much easier to just drop it and move on. The talented and stylish Monica Hrasnik also steps away after a decade of racing World Cups, and they will both be missed. In the elite men, I honestly only cared about one thing. I needed Loic Bruni and Jackson Goldstone to get into the final. And they absolutely did, with Jackson slotting nicely into third. Lucas Shaw continued his form from Lake Placid and went into second, and Loic Bruni did something dastardly. He smashed qualifying, making a statement that he was going for the series win. The race was on. Andreas Kolb set off early due to a poor qualifying and a heavy crash in the rock garden which saw him progress through the Q2 round. He had been posting fast splits during all the time sessions, so we knew he had some pace to show. He rode a smooth and clever race up top, barely putting a wheel wrong on the open flow, and kept it tidy through the awkward flat sections. Andy kept it clean through the rocks, opting not to triple through the exit, but he still managed to keep the momentum and dumped some power on the exit. A wild and deep final woods had everyone's hearts in their mouths. He got to the line to post a time a second faster than the ridiculous qualifying time of Bruni, but still about 3 seconds slower than M.S.A. Kolb was sat there for a good stint until the first of the most anticipated riders took to the hill. Jackson Goldstone had all the pressure. He had the championships on the line. It was his local race, kinda. It's been hyped up to the absolute limit, and he was expected to win. Would he hold his nerve? Jackson launched out of the gate and absolutely slapped the first turn and gapped into the next transition. The run started with crazy intensity and flow, and then he started doing some ludicrous Jackson things on track, which created some of the best viewing of the event. The reactions of the riders in the hot seat, Kolb's impressed excitement, Pinkerton's disbelief and Dakota's disappointment held the full range of emotions. Shout out to Warner Bros. Discovery's social team for capturing that one. Then we got the most incredible feat of the weekend. Jackson did not slow down going into the rock garden. He charged in there almost double the speed of anyone else and just mashed into the harshest rocks on the hill and skipped over them. If anyone else had done that, they would have been riding out of it on their axles. He then ticked off every gnarly gap with precision and crossed the line over 2 seconds up on Kolb in one of the most impressive displays of resilience under pressure I've ever seen. Jackson is a champion through and through. But it wasn't over. 2 riders to go. Lucas Shaw roared out the start gate. His near win last week had him fired up and he was charging, power wheeling out of the turns like a beast. He went too deep off the shark fin, which lost momentum in time, but the midsections were clean, but missing some intensity like Jackson had. Luca got a little sketchy into the rock garden, losing speed, but he was one of only 2 elites to pull the triple on the way out, which helped him to limit his losses. He dumped everything he had left into the lower slopes and slotted into second, just 0.001 seconds in front of Andreas Kolb in third, which is literally 1 centimetre of difference over 290,000 centimetres of track. Exciting and close finish there. And now it was time for the thing we'd all been waiting for. Would Loic Bruni have what it takes to stop Jackson winning the series? The live feed flipped to the top to watch him drop into the final run of the year. And he wasn't there. Where is he? The commentators were confused. The starting official was confused. The people at the finish were really confused. I was so confused. I mean, this is unprecedented in downhill. And immediately the rumours started flying. He's chickened out. His wife's gone into labour. He's at a mechanical. And while the rumours swirled, the start beep sounded out over an empty start hut, signalling the end of the race and the series fight. Jackson Goldstone had done the unbelievable. In his first full elite season, without injury or health issues, he'd won 5 races, a world championship and the overall. Actually, all the world champs won the overall, which I don't think has ever happened before. Jackson could barely believe it, and the confusion almost didn't let reality take hold. No one wants to win without it being a fair fight. And a win by default is hard to celebrate, even if the win is still well deserved, especially when the default is wrapped in mystery. Slowly, information started to drip out as Jackson began to accept that he had done it. Bruni had crashed in the morning before the race and badly bruised his leg. The assumption that quickly spread around the pits was that Bruni was never intending to drop in, and the team kept it secret to make Jackson think the race was on, forcing him to go all out and potentially make a mistake and finish lower than 10th. If that was the situation, that is a logical decision for anyone truly wanting to win a championship, even if there are some moral questions up for debate. But what about the alternatives? What if he did tell Jackson he wasn't racing and it put him off his focus and he threw it away? What if he told Jackson he was injured but racing, and then Jackson backed off too much and then Bruni dropped in and actually it wasn't too bad and he won? What if he was intending to ride and pressuring Jackson wasn't even a factor? What we need to figure out is, was Bruni intending to drop in or not? If he was intending to ride, then keeping it secret is fair game. Any racer that is willingly giving their competitor an advantage is not truly racing to win. So what was his intention? So far, no images have surfaced of this crash for us to dissect, but we do have a clip of him on his first run with dirt on his leg and sleeve, which confirms the first run crash story. We also have footage of him completing a second run after the crash, which shows he was still able to ride at a decent pace despite the injury. And that shows he was capable of riding. The other piece of visual factual evidence to back up any claims is that Loic's arm was visibly wrapped up with physio tape when he came off the hill after the race. Riders used that wrap to strap down any swelling and stop it flapping around when riding and causing pain. That means he was kitted up to ride and not just dressed for show. So let's put ourselves in Bruni's shoes for a second. You've injured your leg, you can ride, but probably not good enough to win the race. You would be a fool to not head up there, ready to go, See how Jackson does. Maybe if he has a problem and places lower down, you can still do well enough to win the series. Like if Jackson finished 8th, the way the points fall off, that would mean Bruni could roll down, place last, and still get enough points to win. But if Jackson does really good, you see how you're feeling. Drop in and go for it if you feel good. Bow out if the swelling has gotten too bad and it would be too dangerous. And it looks like the latter option is what happened. The swelling got bad enough that he wasn't going to be able to safely perform. So he didn't. And from what I can tell after asking a couple sources, Bruni arrived down at the bottom after the podiums, which is why he missed them. Seems like a timing issue rather than him snubbing the podiums, but more information may come out that contradicts that. I'm just basing this on what I know. Regardless, Bruni was clearly distraught about the situation.
Hey Loic.
Yo.
How you doing, man?
Not the best.
Talk me through it. What happened up there?
So this morning I had a crash, but nothing insane. Hit my arm and hit my leg, but it happened before. When I hit my leg, I have internal bleeding. It's not big, but it creates super deep hematomas. And I felt it on my second practice run. I was like, I know this feeling, and my leg's just becoming super hard and full of blood, and there's no space for the muscles, so I can't use it. And I tried to push through the pain at warm up and hoped for a mistake from Jackson to maybe hit a wheel, have a flat, or like, obviously it's not the way I wanted things to go down, because the crowd was amazing, the weather was amazing, and I was feeling really good, so I was like really gutted with that. But when Jackson came down first, I knew I had to be in the top 3, top 5, depending on what Luca was doing, and I did not have that at all in me, so I just called it a championship.
How close were you to dropping in? Were you?
I was just in front of the start, but I was there. I was like waiting for Jackson's time. I was like, I didn't believe I could do it because my leg was absolutely not working, and it's still not working. So, and I also go home to the baby, so I don't want to be absolutely stupid. But it's tough. It's a little bit tough to not give it away, but not be up for the fight on the last day of the whole season. World champs, we were lucky too with the mechanical. Today this happens. Year when it came to important days, so it is what it is. We'll come back next year stronger, and yeah, it's sad to go. I don't feel like I deserve it to go down like this, but Jackson deserves all of the success he's having, so congrats to him, and it was super fun to be doing this battle.
Perfect. Thank you very much, man.
That sucks. Honestly, it sucks for us as fans not to see the race we had hoped for. It sucks for Jackson, who never got the chance to go toe-to-toe with his greatest challenger. But most of all, it sucks for Bruni, who lifted his game this year to match an exceptional talent and take this championship all the way to the final race. So history didn't quite repeat this weekend, but it was incredibly entertaining to see if it would. And if you're not sure what I'm talking about, you need to go watch the History is Repeating video linked in the description. It's really good. I have thoroughly enjoyed the racing this year, and I'm stoked that producing these videos remotely has actually worked, even though it was actually a lot harder than I thought it would be. Thanks to everyone that let me even try to do this. Thanks to the video team for tirelessly capturing and editing all of the action all year long. Thanks to the various guest presenters who have helped us to experiment throughout the year. And thank you for watching. Right, guess I can get rid of all of this then. Lights off. We're done. Oh.